The next step in the process is setting up your character. Now for this example, I've downloaded a couple of free characters from the asset store. This is a barbarian character and a survival character. These two characters are set up in quite different ways, so it will be useful for demonstrating two use cases in LipSync. The first one we'll look at is the survival character. Now I've already brought both of these characters into the scene, as you would with your own model. And here he is. The first step will be adding the LipSync component to your character. So I'd usually put this on the root game object of the character. You could put it anywhere else, it doesn't really matter, but I find that usually just helps for keeping things organised. We'll go to add component, and I'll just start typing in LipSync. There we go, and we'll add that. First thing we'll need to do now is choose a blend system. Blend systems are what LipSync uses to control the actual character. LipSync supports a number of different ways of animating characters, so blend systems just let us abstract that out. For a character like this, which is rigged using blend shapes rather than bones, we'll click the Select a Blend System button and choose Blend Shape Blend System. I'll go on to the difference between the advanced blend shape blend system later on, but for now we'll just use this one. We'll now need to just drag in any meshes that the character uses. So for this, we have this head high model, and that goes in Skin Mesh Renderer. You can optionally add in other meshes here, if you've got other meshes for, say, eyebrows or beard hair or anything else on the face that will also animate. You can put that in this section here. Bear in mind that using the standard blend shape blend system, these will all need to have the exact same set of blend shapes on as your main character mesh. Once we're done with the setup, we'll press continue, and this gives us the rest of the LipSync component. I'll briefly go over what all the options on this screen are. The first thing is audio source. Now your character needs to have an audio source assigned to it in order to actually play the LipSync audio. Now you can just add one to the root game object if you want, but I prefer, for realism's sake, to put one on a separate game object that's placed round about the mouth of the character. So I've just created a new game object and I am putting an audio source on it. Now you can play around with this and set up all the 3D settings however you like, but for now we'll just grab this object and put it roughly in the right place. And this will just help, especially if it's a first-person game, so that the voice actually sounds like it's coming from the right place. Now that that's done, I will go in and drag this new voice source object into the audio source field there. The next thing down is the Use Bone Transforms checkbox. We're going to leave this unchecked for now because it actually improves performance slightly, but if we were using a character that was rigged with bones rather than blend shapes, we would turn that on and that would let us put bones into these poses. We'll then move on to the poses themselves. So these are the individual animation shapes or poses that will be used for doing the lip syncing or facial animation. By default, this is the standard list, although you can customize this if you want to. As well as the toggles for the 3 different sets here, you've also got this, which is the presets button. By default, LipSync comes with 2 presets for Adobe or Mixamo Fuse characters, but others are available and you can actually create your own by clicking the Save New Preset button. We'll get onto that afterwards. Because we're using a custom character here, there aren't any presets for it, so we'll have to set up these poses ourselves. To start on one of the poses, you just click on that line, and you can see the little box opens up. We've also been given a little diagram here in the scene view showing roughly what that shape should look like. To start with, we'll do Add Blend Shape, and you can see now we've got one line in this box. We can then choose any of these blend shapes that are on the character and drag this bar to control the size. or the intensity of the blend shape, sorry. Now this is the AI phoneme, so I think that should be just something fairly simple like that. And then we can close that, and then go to the E phoneme. Now this one should have the mouth a little more closed, so I'm going to drag it out to maybe that, and then see if there's something else we can use to set the sides of the mouth wider. So you can add as many blend shapes as you like to any pose. So for this I'll go with maybe maybe smile, try adding a bit of that to it, maybe. What else we got? You. Yeah, we'll leave that out. You can remove any blend shape from the pose by clicking the little bin icon on the right. If you've got a lot of blend shapes in your character, too many to fit in this list, you can also use the search feature. You click the little magnifying glass icon here, and you'll see we now have a search bar. You can start typing in anything in this bar and then press search, and we get a list of blend shapes that match the search term. For now, we'll just click this button to go back to the list, and we'll leave that how it is. I'm going to just go through the rest of these now and set them up how I think is right. Okay, I've finished setting those poses up. You'll see here I actually left the L phoneme blank. That's because the defining feature of this is the tongue hitting the roof of the mouth. And on this character there isn't actually any blend shape to control that. So instead of putting something in here, I've just left it blank, and we'll do without that for now. The next thing is setting up the emotions. So instead of the phonemes tab here, I'll click on emotions. These sets of emotions here are the ones that are included by default. But as you can see, if you click this Edit Emotions button, it will select the Project Settings asset, and you can add here any extra emotions you want. You can also assign each emotion a colour, which just helps for identifying it in the clip editor later, and you can also do the animation gestures here. Now emotions are just expressions. They are extra poses that you can layer over the top of your lip sync to add the impression of emotion. Gestures are full-body animation clips that LipSync will trigger at certain points in your dialogue. At this stage, all gestures are just a name that you can then assign an animation to at a later date. For now, I'll go back to the character and set up these emotions. Alright, that's the basic pose setup complete then. If I have multiple characters that use these same sets of blend shapes, or I might want to set up this character again in future, I can save out a preset. So I'll click on the presets menu here, and then click Save New Preset. The Use Relative Bone Transforms option obviously doesn't apply to blend shapes, but if we were using bones, ticking that would save the positions and rotations of the bones relative to their neutral positions. The advantage of saving the preset like that means that if you then apply it to another character which has its bones in a different position to start with, the preset can still look close to right instead of going completely crazy and making the character look broken. In this case, we'll just go ahead and press browse and find where we want to save it. I'll put it in, I'll create a new presets folder here and save it in there. And we'll just call it Survivor. You should note that presets have to be saved in a folder called presets, or the subfolder of a folder called presets. If you make a subfolder, that will actually be used in the list of presets, so you can use that to sort them. Here we go, press save, and now in our list here we have this Survivor preset. Okay, I'll now just go over quickly what the rest of these options here are. Timing mode controls how LipSync synchronizes your animation. The audio playback mode will synchronize it using the actual playback position of your audio clip. So this makes sure that the animation will never go out of sync with your audio, even if your frame rate drops or you change the time scale of your project. The alternative to that is custom timer, which will give the same results usually, but decouples the animation and the audio. Usually you won't want to use this mode, but there are some platforms such as the Universal Windows platform that actually don't support audio playback, and you'll want to switch to this instead. The final option is fixed frame rate. As the name implies, this will force LipSync to actually animate at a fixed frames per second rate, which you specify here. This is generally a very bad option for actual gameplay or real-time use where the frame rate can vary. But if you're making an animation that you're going to be recording at a fixed frame rate using something like VR Panorama, this is the option to go with. You specify the frame rate you'll record at, and it'll make sure it always lasts the correct amount of time in the recording. We'll just switch this back to audio playback. Play on awake is a checkbox that works just like on an audio source. You can drag in a LipSync data file here, which is our animation format, and you can specify a delay. Loop clip does exactly as it implies. Once an animation finishes, it'll just make it start again from the beginning. And scale audio speed actually alters the pitch of your audio clip based on the project's timescale. This means you'll just automatically get LipSync that stays synchronized even if you slow the project down. This is good for slow motion or things like that. Next we have the animation settings. Rest time and pre-rest hold time specify how the rest phoneme is inserted into your animations. We'll get on to exactly what this does later, but usually you can just leave them as they are. Next we have the phoneme curve generation mode. This specifies how the animation is actually created. With it set to loose, your animation will generally look a little more fluid and natural, but it can lead to your facial poses getting kind of overshot and exaggerated. Tight will make sure that they always stay within the limits that you've set here in your poses, but again it can make the animation look a little more stilted or robotic. If the animation doesn't look how you want later on, you can play around with this and the emotion version down here and just see what looks best. Okay, now that we've gone over that in detail, I will set up the barbarian character, and I'll only explain the differences on this one. Again, we'll add the LipSync component, and just for speed, I'll add the audio source to this object as well. And then for this one, we're going to select Advanced Blend Shape Blend System. Now you notice with this one, we don't have the character mesh field up here. Instead, it's added a Blend Shape Manager component onto the bottom of the game object. The reason we're using this blend system is for this character we have multiple meshes. The body mesh here, which has all of these blend shapes on, but you'll notice as we move his eyebrows here, his actual brows aren't moving. For that we have to select the eyebrow R mesh, and this has blend shapes on. There's also the eyebrow L mesh. The problem is that, like I said when we were doing the previous character, the standard blend shape blend system only works if all the meshes you're using have the same list of blend shapes. In this case, as you can see, the eyebrow meshes only have the blend shapes relating to the eyebrow. That's where the advanced blend shape blend system comes in. So, what we want to do before we set up anything on the character itself is add our blend shapes. This part of the component here is a simple sort of setup wizard for us to do that. So I'll start out by dragging the body mesh into this field and clicking add, and you can see now it's added there and has 38 blend shapes. We then want to add eyebrow L, which has 4, and eyebrow R, which also has 4. Now that we've got all our meshes in there, we can press build from names, and now if we expand this bit down here, you can see we have our different blend shapes. Now ideally we'd have named these blend shapes the same between our models, then it would have automatically merged them together. As it is, we've got blend shape 3 here, which is separate, and blend shape 2, which is separate. We could really have done with eyebrow L here, being matched to one of these brows out here. If you've got time, you can go in and we could choose something like, say, brow lower L here, and expand out the mapping section, and where we've got one mapping to the body here, we could add a second one, like this, and map that to whatever our brow blend shapes here are. So we could say brow L blend shape 1, for instance, if that was the right one. That could be a little more time consuming though, so I'm not going to bother with that right now. We'll just have to make sure we use these both of these blend shapes. I'll go and fold this up and then head back up to the component. For this character, we're also going to enable use bone transforms. A count for animation can be useful in situations where you're going to be putting bones into your poses that are already animated by an animator like this. You want to make sure though that you only enable this if all the bones you use are controlled by the animator. If they're not, you'll see them start kind of going crazy and flying off in different directions. So we're going to leave that unticked. The reason we're using bone transforms in this model, we can see if we expand the skeleton out here, the jaw and I believe also the tongue possibly are controlled by bones, so we'll want to animate those separately. Now, because we need to use a bone to open the jaw in this character, instead of adding a blend shape first, I'm going to add a bone transform. Now you can see this gives us a slightly different interface. I'm going to select from our skeleton down here the jawbone and drag that into the transform. And you can see now it's given us a second manipulation handle up here that we can use to pose that bone. Now, because this is quite a cartoony character, we can probably get away with actually moving the jaw around a bit, but you may not want to do that usually. So I'm going to just sort of drag that out to about there, I think looks good. Yeah, that'll do well. And we could also add any blend shapes on top of this if we wanted to as well. Maybe, I don't know, nose compressor, what does that look like? Yeah, well, probably don't need that for this. I'll get on and just do the rest of the phonemes now. And there we go. Both of these characters are now ready for use.